Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. Thank you for joining me in Stories That Shape Us. Thank you for watching the stories, listening to the stories over on Spotify and Apple Podcast. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the messages that I get. I know you don't always put them below the video. Thank you for sharing. If this is the first time that you are watching Stories That Shape Us or you're on our channel, please like the video, leave us a comment and subscribe to our channel. We really would appreciate that because we give real good content on how to just manage when you're a Christian and you've experienced trauma, some of the things to look out for, and some of the ways to manage. Uh, this week, I've been dealing with abuse, grooming in church, talking about abuse. What are some of the things that happen as a result of abuse? Yesterday was why is abuse so harmful? Why is it so impacting? And why should we should all be infuriated by abuse. We should all be so upset about it that we all want to do something about it. We have a program in the Adventist Church called End It Now. We should all be so upset with abuse that we want to end it now. We want to all get behind the people who are healing, the people who have experienced it, the people who are perpetrators. We should be so fearful for them because their eternal salvation is being jeopardized, and so we should be so fearful on their behalf that we really want them urgently to stop what they're doing so that they can stop harming people. Today I want to talk about church leaders and their need for understanding of abuse. I think it should be mandatory training for church leaders to be able to understand abuse. They should all be It should be ongoing professional development for leaders, for pastors, for people in leadership to understand the cycle of abuse, understand how it functions, understand the impact of abuse, know how to spot it so that they know what to look out for. I did some training in February, late February, for some churches and on around this, and it was with pastors and leaders. And I'm always encouraged when a church make those kind of decisions because they see it tells me that people are listening, and as more and more people are talking and coming forward, the church is seeing the duty that they have and the responsibility that they have to care for people. So I did some training. Not it was a country in Europe, and I was really encouraged. It had to be translated, so that it wasn't even an English speaking country. But I'm very encouraged that more and more churches are coming forward with wanting to learn and understand and know how to respond to abuse. I believe church leaders need more knowledge of abuse. I believe church leaders need to be in continuous learning and development where they can learn to challenge their own biases around abuse. That we all have biases. All of us have personal biases. We make judgments, and I believe they need to learn how to do that so that they can adequately support people. Because oftentimes what we hear, the stories that we hear are horrifying because people often get hurt more by church when they disclose abuse, sometimes because of who the perpetrator is, how loved they are, the friendships that they have in church, the connections that they have, the victim's not believed. And so what it does is causes more harm than good. And so that's some of the reasons why church leaders need to know more. They need more knowledge around abuse. They need not only knowledge around abuse, but the ability to challenge their own biases. They need a safe space to understand I have bias around this area, and therefore I won't be able to respond in a supportive way to these people. And so I need to go challenge my bias. I believe that leadership shouldn't only be because you have qualifications or because you're a certain gender. It should be because you have a commitment to serve. And we learn in Ezekiel how the responsibility that God gives to leaders. Like You're supposed to look after the sheep. You're supposed to look after the flock. And how dangerous it is for you, for a leader that doesn't care for the flock but harms them. How dangerous is that for you? And so that's why when I speak on stories that shape us, and I do my videos on whatever work I do, I make sure I leave the space. I keep the space safe for anybody to stand up and say, "That's me. I need help." I might not be able to help you, but I can direct you to places where you can get support, because it's really important. And I know that it takes a lot of humility for somebody to say, "I don't know that, Joanna, but I would like to know. I don't want to hurt anybody else. I think I may have hurt some people in the past by how I've responded to abuse. I don't want to hurt anybody else. And so I need to learn to understand so that I can make some different choices." I think that would be beautiful. That would be extremely beautiful. That would be so encouraging. That if there are people who do that, and I know that there are people who do that in roundabout ways. As I said, people have invited me to come and train their churches. I did 2 days training, and booked to go to other places to do training over. Of course, it can't be done in an afternoon in an hour. It's not possible. And even when I go for 2 days, your church is going to need ongoing learning and training. Every new leader is going to need to do it. You're going to, and we have a school. I'm going to call it a membership for churches that you. I'm going to put the details below this video that you can tap into. That you can see some of the ways that some of the things that you need to learn and understand, so that you can see abuse, so that you can support people as they're healing, so that you can understand the mental health impact of abuse, and so that you can know when you see it what to do, how to deal with it, how to manage it, so that when you're praying with people and you're doing pastoral care, it can be done in a way that is appropriate, right? So I have a whole weeks of content in that school at the moment, and new things are added every month, where you watch the video, you do a case study, you do a worksheet, you do a test to solidify learning, to show that you understand what you've just with the content that you're consuming, and you can leave with good learning. So there are learning outcomes that is designed for each module of the program, so that you can understand that, okay, so these are some of the fallout of abuse. There are people with depression and anxiety. You have them in your congregation. You have people with post-traumatic stress symptoms. You have them in your congregation. You are preaching at them. You're preaching to them every week. You are interacting with them. They are struggling. And when you can't see the struggle, and when you can't minister to the struggle, they see Jesus in the same way, that he can't see it, that he can't hear it, that he can't minister to it, that he doesn't care about it. We are his hands and his feet. We are people that show him and his love to the world. And when we are not able to show that to the people that we're serving, then it sends a completely different message of a God who doesn't care. And you and I know that that's not true. So those are some of the reasons why you need to, as a leader, church leaders need to know more. And people view you as responsible because you have care of the flock, and especially if the abuse happened between members of the church in the same congregation. If the grooming, we did grooming for sexual abuse a couple of days ago, if that grooming happens in church by a member in church to an adult or a child in church, people see you as having responsibility. You have responsibility. You have responsibility to do both, and it might be tricky to do it, but it's your responsibility as a leader. That's why maybe when you get asked, it's something to consider. And maybe when you're considering the role of a leader, when they've asked you, maybe something that you need to put in is, I want to make sure that you're going to give me ongoing training to be able to help me to manage this role effectively. Maybe that's something to put in, like when they come and make requests. And sometimes I know that sometimes we're pressured into taking the role. Well, God wants you to do this. If you know that you don't have the skills to lead at that level with the right amount of knowledge and skill to be able to serve the people, then you need to ask for ongoing professional development, supervision, a place that you can go talk it through, and you can get support. Maybe some of those are some of the things that you can add to it. We can't just give people leadership because of their age. We can't do it tokenistically because somebody's young and we want young people to be leaders too. We can't do it because of somebody's gender. You get to be leader because you're a male, and whatever our theology is around that. We have to do it knowingly, knowing that these are people who care deeply for people. You don't become one only because you can preach. It needs to be people who are empathetic and sympathetic and caring, and people who have the capacity to be those things, people who are willing to learn and they're teachable and they want to understand and grow with the congregation, and they really have the heart of Christ, the heart that Christ has for the leadership of the church. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. If you are a church, as I said, there are lots of resources that Wounds to Scars have that we can make available to you. And you can get your leaders in that position where they can listen to abuse in a way that will make your church a safe church. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.